Difficult conversations. This is one of the hardest parts of being a principal, engaging in those conversations that you just don't want to engage in. And I don't care who you are as a school leader, it happens. There are certain topics, certain people, situations that require a conversation, but what it does, it kind of like turns your stomach, because you're like, oh, this is one of those things that I know it may turn out to be super emotional for the other person. I might have to take a stance that is a little bit more forceful or unforgiving because of the circumstance around what occurred. There's going to be hurt feelings. But difficult conversations are necessary. If they're not had, what ends up happening is bad situations become worse. Bad behaviors are not addressed. Circumstances in which major mistakes are made are never confronted. And as a school leader, your school community now suffers because that thing that needs to be addressed becomes a festering wound that just becomes worse and worse and worse. So it's very important to have difficult conversations. I've had many of them where I was the one who was actually, initiating those conversations as a leader. I've had many of them where it was being initiated with me as a subordinate, and from every single situation, I learned something, and and I can say, rarely have they ever been a difficult conversation that didn't result with something good coming out of it. And what am I talking about this today? Every day I'm faced with difficult conversations. Earlier in the week, I had to sit with 5 sets of parents, families, and have difficult conversations about their child or communications or various things that happened in which I had to really go into places that I knew would make both parties uncomfortable. Because no one ever wants to be like, hey, your child is not doing X, Y, Z, or being told by a parent your school didn't do X, Y, Z. But those conversations need to be had so you can come up with a solution to fix the problem and ensure that whatever transpired doesn't happen again. And that's the thing. And then we have better systems in place to make sure that everyone is taken care of, that everybody's seen, and whatever the problem was is resolved, and it doesn't have to be revisited. So a school environment is a space in which communication is always key. You cannot have a school without communicating. If you're teaching, you're communicating. If you're serving, you're communicating. Whatever you do, there's communication. And the goal of a school is to constantly improve, get better, you know, have practices in place that ensures that the learning environment is optimal for everyone involved, for the student, for the teacher, for the families, so that we have the right outcomes. But in doing that, you have to address when things are going wrong. And you can't shy away from it. I've never had a difficult conversation where I was like, oh, this is going to be an easy one. It's always difficult. But what ends up happening so often is school leaders tend to avoid certain topics or certain things and let it kind of push it to the side and say, I'll get to that later, or that's not a big deal right now, that's not a priority, until, like I said earlier, it becomes that festering wound, and then all of a sudden it's oozing with pus, and it's infected, and now this is a problem. That was never addressed earlier. Often, what I've seen is problems that occur because when they were small, they were never addressed. The small things were never looked at. They were never assessed. They were never taken care of. So they became bigger things. So to maintain a strong school community, a strong school environment, you have to constantly monitor the school, of course, but when you see a problem, you have to address it. And and I know it's hard sometimes because the problem might be someone that you get along with, or somebody that you've established a professional relationship that is strong over years. Someone who you know, if I approach this person to discuss this matter, things might go left. So you have to be willing for things to go left for the betterment of the school community, the school environment. So how do you prepare for the difficult conversations? You have to first start from a space of facts. What is the problem? What led to this to you identifying like, hey, this is an issue, you know? And then if you have identified a problem, what is your objective in having a difficult conversation? What is the outcome that you're looking for in having that difficult conversation? Are you just having a conversation just because you want to nitpick? Or hopefully, preferably, you're saying, hey, this is a problem we need to fix for the betterment of everyone involved, the school community, the individuals involved, whoever the person may be. It's essential. What is the problem, the fact? What is the objective? What is the outcome you're looking for? And also something that needs to always be looked at or considered. What is the anticipated reaction? Often we go into spaces be like, okay, I'm just going to attack this thing, because this is a problem that needs to be fixed. But we don't think about what could be the outcome, what could be a hindrance in the communication between you as the leader and that person you're having a difficult conversation with. What could be a hindrance in them hearing you and understanding why this thing was a problem that had to be discussed and there had to be an objective of rectifying it or fixing it so that we can move forward as a school community or even within the relationship within the school community, right? So these are things that you have to prepare for. But now, the next thing is setting the scene. When and how are you going to have this conversation? I've seen people who say, listen, tomorrow when I walk in, I'm going to look for that person. I'm going to address it right then and there. I'm going to come find you. Then I know people who say, no, I need to think about this. So they mull over the issue or the problem for days, sometimes weeks and months as it gets worse and worse. And then by the time they're trying to address it, that issue has become something that by default has become part of the culture. So by not addressing it, you've allowed it to now become a constant. You've actually allowed that problem to be normalized. So now they're talking about it, it's like, wait a minute, I've been doing this for weeks. I've been doing this for the whole entire year. I've been doing this for years. You never said anything to me. I didn't know. What are you talking about? So it's very important. There's a problem. You have to plan out when and where is it going to be addressed. And the when is very important, but the immediacy is necessary to resolve, a problem, to be able to have that difficult conversation. But however, where is important? School leaders will always be like, okay, I'm gonna work with somebody in the hallway, or I'm gonna bring them in my office, I'm gonna go to the classroom. All those locations actually matter. If I bring you to my office, I'm sitting behind my desk, you're sitting in front of my desk, there's a power play there. You're kind of removing collaboration out of the window or a conversation in the safe space out the window because now is the boss versus the subordinate. That's play there. The hallway is that sneak attack. Hey, I need to talk to you real quick. I saw this XYZ. That sneak attack. Then you create a space where now this person feels like, yo, I'm just being bum rushed in this space, in their own space. And even how you walk in there, that could be a space where you're walking in there and you're like, hey, I need to talk to you about the situation, but they're in their own space and it could be a safe space. Or you could walk into their space like a bull in a china shop and you're disrupting the energy of their space. All these things matter because, again, my thing has always been, if I'm going to have a difficult conversation with you, are you hearing me? Are you understanding what happened, why this has to happen? And the way you approach somebody, the space you walk into, and how you walk into that space can impact how they hear you, or if they even hear you at all. And then communicating effectively. You have to be able to speak to the person in a manner in which they hear you. We're not yelling, we're not screaming, we're not defaming, we're not minimizing, we're not, you know, making the other person feel small. You're having a conversation so they can hear, they can see what the issue was, and then be part of the solution. Versus saying that you did X, Y, Z, and that's it. That doesn't work. Because unless this person is being fired or being removed from your building, this person now has to return back to work. And you don't want someone going back to work and feeling like they don't understand what just happened, or even worse, not feeling angry because they felt like they've been attacked or even abused. Because one thing I want to tell you, don't forget this: hurt people, abuse people, abuse people. And we've all been there where we were angry, upset about something, and then we, because it was never dealt with, we lash out at people around us, and it was never them, but the feeling that was in you as an individual, if not properly dealt with, had to come out somehow and come out towards somebody, and it did. And that leads me to just handling emotions. And I'll tell you this: the handling emotions is more for the person who is initiating the difficult conversation. But if you control your emotions, 90% of the time, the other person is going to mirror your emotions. If I come to you and say, "Hey, we need to talk. A couple of things are concerning me, and I want to make sure that we're on the same page. So here are the facts. I saw this X, Y, Z, and I'm not sure why this happened, and I really wanted to understand from your perspective what happened here, so we can now, figure out how to move forward." Versus, so let's talk. X, Y, Z happened, and I was told that you did X, Y, Z, and blah 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 blah, and I don't understand what you were thinking when you did what you did. And there might be some times where you have to do that, but often it doesn't work. I'm saying, being accusatory often doesn't work. Unless there's a very clear and present danger and there's evidence that, hey, that happened, and it's in such high violation that you have to have an immediate and strong response, because that is what's required at that moment. But most of the time, that's not the case. So you have to control your emotions. You have to come into whatever the problem is from a calm, even keel space, where you're also willing to listen. But now, there's something that's very important. I said this earlier: collaboration. How to work towards a solution that is not just you saying this is what you're going to do, but saying, how do we fix this? And that's something a lot of times we don't do. We just go straight in and say, well, this is what's going to happen, bam, 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 that's it. Versus saying, hey, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I have been wrong, and maybe I didn't see, and I'm late in the game of supporting you, but how do we move forward? And that is something that is very important. You got to give people grace. You got to let people understand that that you are a partner with them in fixing the problem or making things better, versus just blaming and then giving directives. Now, from now on, you must do X, Y, Z. It doesn't work. I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't work. When people leave you or leave the situation, the difficult conversation, and they're hurt and they feeling pain, I'm telling you, you're not going to get a genuine next step response. You're going to get compliance, and you're going to get people who are just going to, fall into a space of being what's the word, passive aggressive, and that doesn't benefit anyone. So, in working towards a solution, create common ground, make sure you and the other person talk it out, and literally write it out. Look, this is what we're going to do next. Do you agree with this? Can we do this? Because you want the solution to be something that is long lasting and only makes things better. And I'll tell you this: like my difficult conversations with parents required that I spent more time with them. It required that I had follow-up meetings. It required that I said, hey, what is it that you need for this to get better? What is this that you need for us to be able to move forward. Oh, I also understand that these are your non-negotiables. Okay, this is my non-negotiables. Where do we find common ground? And each of my conversations, each of the parents I had, started with anger and pain, and I like to say it closed out with understanding and hope, and that's the goal. Let's move together to find a solution. So I think this is something that's been on my head for the past couple of days on how we have difficult conversations as school leaders, and how do we ensure that our parents, our students, our staff members, the general community is able to function together to improve situations, so that we can, you know, be successful at accomplishing our outcomes. All right, y'all. Uche Joku, Sneaker Principal. I just wanted to share this with you real quick. And till next time, be well. Peace.